2 people injured in a fire at a gay nightclub in Bushwick. More on the arson investigation.
2654 yes to 2131 no.
A close look at how workers secured the first union at an Amazon warehouse.
And can you be discriminated against for your hairstyle? Congress says you can be, and they've taken steps to stop it. All this and more. Live from Columbia University in the city of New York, this is CJS News. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Samantha Cheney.
And I'm Michael Hoffman. We start tonight with troubling news out of Brooklyn. A fire at an LGBT nightclub in Bushwick. Investigators say it was arson. Some worry it may have been a targeted attack. Rosemary Miller is there live.
That's right, Mike. The NYPD is launching an investigation about a possible arson. The suspect still remains unknown.
An LGBTQ nightclub, Rash, New York City, was the scene of arson on Sunday evening. According to published reports, as the venue prepared for an event, a man walked in and poured gasoline on the floor before setting the place on fire. We spoke to one woman in the neighborhood who was anonymous and asked us to only use her first name, Hannah.
So I live in the building, a couple buildings over, and I was on my roof doing work, and I heard sounds that didn't sound usual, typical for like a Sunday night, and I would say that they sounded aggressive, and I actually thought that someone was being beat up.
That's when Hannah went to look over the ledge.
One of them said, "That's enough, just leave it," because I saw like a big plume of black smoke just come up.
The club had only been open for about 6 months. Now it's suffering severe damages, leading the owner to create a GoFundMe.
I was really saddened by it. Also because it's like, they just opened up so recently, and I feel like it was becoming like this really popular spot to go and have fun, and it's just really sad and scary too.
LGBTQ residents are feeling the loss.
I mean, I think it's absolutely terrible that something like that will happen, and I think that it's horrible that that will happen in a community where we have a lot of LGBTQ people, like myself. And I think it's horrible that we can't just, and this is for anyone in the world, can't go out and have fun and just have a good time without feeling like we're in danger.
The police have not called it a hate crime, but they are investigating the motives. Live from Bushwick, I'm Rosemary Miller, CJS News.
Thanks, Rosemary. And more violence in the city this week. A 12-year-old boy in Brooklyn and a 61-year-old woman in the Bronx were shot and killed. Their deaths are part of a rising crime rate that has New Yorkers on alert. Major crimes such as shootings, grand larceny, and robbery are up nearly 40%. The murder rate, however, has fallen 15% in the past year.
Amazon, here we come. Those were President Biden's words in support of union workers this week. This after local workers at an Amazon warehouse voted to unionize. Ronald Harad brings us the story of one of the workers who helped lead the charge.
Staten Island's Amazon location, also known as JFK8, is the latest to embrace unionization. One of the people who led that effort says it's an important step to improving the workplace.
The work, like I said, the workers now have a collective bargaining union to bargain with.
Last Friday, the Amazon labor union had a major victory. They were the first group of Amazon workers to unionize in the U.S. Gerald Bryson helped lead the workers' struggle.
Our goals were, after going through what we went through, and to come back here, was to make life better for everybody.
Gerald worked for Amazon for 2 years. He says the working conditions were unbearable.
10 hours a day on your feet. You have an analytical computer that's keeping your stats. You're worn down regardless of what you're doing, whether it's physical or if you're just counting. Your brain feels like mush.
In 2020, Gerald got into a heated argument with a female coworker over unionization. Following the dispute, Gerald was fired because Amazon's strict policy against vulgar language. But Gerald says he was fired for his pro-union advocacy.
There was no equality at all in firing me.
Even after Gerald sued Amazon for wrongful termination, he continued to fight for the Amazon labor union.
When the vote passed, I was ecstatic. We had finally beat them, at something, and I mean, it's historical.
Experts are just as impressed to see this as an influential victory.
Unions almost never win. In the private sector, it's really, really difficult to win big elections.
In fact, a recent union drive at Amazon in Alabama failed.
Every campaign will be hard fought, but once you have one in the bag, it does inspire workers in other locations.
Amazon's response to the union's victory was less than enthusiastic. We're disappointed with the outcome of the election in Staten Island because we believe having a direct relationship with the company is best for our employees. Amazon says they'll keep fighting. But for Gerald and the Amazon Labor Union, this win is a big step in the right direction.
There's a lot to be done all over, not just with this monster, but with the rest of them too.
Union membership has fallen considerably over the last 20 years, but since the pandemic, public support has actually been growing.
So, Ronald, what is the status of Gerald's lawsuit?
Well, Gerald is actually still in court. He's trying to recoup his funds from the last 2 years since being fired.
And what are some of the changes that the union is aiming to make?
Well, first, they would like to raise their break time from 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Secondly, they would like a shuttle from the ferry all the way to the Amazon facility. And third, they just want their wages raised.
Well, thanks, Ronald.
A historic moment on Capitol Hill today. The first black woman to be confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. It was a tight vote in the Senate with 3 Republicans joining all 50 Democrats to vote yes. Brown is the 6th woman confirmed to the nation's highest court.
It's opening day for Major League Baseball after being pushed back over a collective bargaining disagreement between the MLB and the Players Union. The Mets will be playing the Washington Nationals tonight, and the Yankees will play the Red Sox on Friday.
And with vaccines and boosters protecting the public, a different kind of help is on the way for healthcare workers who feel overwhelmed by the pandemic. Amose Iguodaro with the story of a new law and a tragedy that inspired it.
The law was named for Dr. Lorna Breen, who took her own life after working endless hours in the ER during the height of the pandemic. Dr. Lorna Breen was a hardworking ER medical director at New York Presbyterian Allen Hospital. Her family says the 49-year-old was at the top of her game, and then COVID hit.
Patients were dying in the waiting rooms. It was an unbelievable scene of chaos, and they couldn't get the patients admitted to the hospital fast enough, and described that scene as Armageddon to us.
Corey Feist is a healthcare leader and Dr. Breen's brother-in-law.
For the first time in her career, she could not keep up with this pace, and she was concerned that her lack of ability to keep up was going to impact her career negatively. So Lorna really pushed through. She worked 15, 18-hour days, day after day after day, and until a point where she broke.
Dr. Breen committed suicide in April 2020. More than 2 years later, on March 18th, President Biden signed into law the Dr. Lorna Breen Healthcare Provider Protection Act. It allocates over $100 million to train healthcare workers on strategies to reduce burnout and prevent suicide.
After her death, and again in this setting of just this heightened stress and anxiety with the pandemic, I really felt very strongly that we needed to normalize mental health.
Dr. Angela Mills worked with Dr. Breen. Now she works to ensure that medical professionals have better access to mental health treatment.
We partnered with our psychiatry colleagues and started a program called COPE Columbia to be able to offer one-on-one, private, anonymous peer support sessions for each of the members of our group. And we made it an opt-out, meaning we actually just scheduled it for everybody.
The Physicians Foundation surveyed 2,500 doctors last year. They found that more than 60% reported experiencing burnout. That number more than doubled what it was just 3 years earlier. Dr. Mills says she remains committed to normalizing mental health. Corey Feist keeps Dr. Breen's memory alive as the co-founder and president of the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation.
That it's a significant issue, and in fact, in over 30 states in this country, physicians, and in over 22 states, nurses can have an impact on their license to practice by getting mental health treatment that you or I can get any single day. So this was a significant issue for Lorna that she raised for us. And it's one of the many issues that we continue to work on each and every day.
Burnout among healthcare workers has increased and remains a challenge, which in turn has a repercussion for patient care. So the passing of this bill was certainly important for many reasons and for many people. Mike?
Thanks, Amose. In Manhattan, COVID infections are back on the rise, threatening the rollback of city and state precautions. This comes as Mayor Adams says he will lift mask requirements for children under 5 in public schools if the threat level remains low. However, the mask requirement is still in effect.
We now want to turn our attention to the war in Ukraine, and we warn you that some of the images are disturbing. Video of executed Ukrainians in the city of Bucha has shocked the world. Today, the UN Human Rights Council suspended Russia, and President Joe Biden is holding Russian President Vladimir Putin responsible for what he calls major war crimes.
There's nothing less happening than major war crimes. Responsible nations have to come together to hold these perpetrators accountable.
The president vows to ratchet up the pain for Russia. Already, the U.S. strengthened its economic sanctions, and now the European Union is considered banning Russian coal imports.
In an exclusive interview with the Washington Post, former President Donald Trump defended his actions during the January 6th insurrection. He deflected responsibility for controlling the mob, blaming Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Washington's mayor. This week, Ivanka Trump testified for 8 hours before the House panel investigating the assault. Trump called the questioning a shame and harassment.
And coming up, Black people often feel pressured to wear our hair as conservatively as possible. Now, there's a new law that addresses that.
Also, if you took out student loans and are worried about upcoming payments, you can breathe a little easier, at least for the next 3 months. This is CJS News, and we'll be right back. In an urgent call to the UN's climate organization, we are at a critical moment for nations to take action. The report says that from 2010 to 2019, greenhouse emissions were at the highest in human history. And unless nations act quickly to limit carbon emissions, we will blow past the goal of keeping global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius in 8 years.
And you may have heard about recent legislation to ban employment discrimination based on hairdos bosses don't like. And you may have thought this was a problem for Black women alone. Our reporter Dana Mathura discovered that Black men also feel pressure to conform to white standards.
In Black neighborhoods, barbershops have long served as cultural hubs for conversation and for styling Black hair.
From braids to afros, hair holds significant meaning for those of African descent, and many come here to salons and barbershops like this in Harlem. But some are forced to fit in.
Workplaces and schools can have strict hair codes, forcing Black people to shave or straighten their natural hair, all to adhere to what white managers consider professional.
You know, I had to pull my hair back, got some teasing from other people from having weird hair. I used to have curly hair, real curly hair, and I was always the curly-headed little boy, the little mixed boy, and then I ended up with dreadlocks, and it was a whole nother set of stones.
We say no more to Black people being demeaned and discriminated against for the same hairstyles that corporations profit from.
A 2021 study by Dove shows that race-based hair discrimination starts as early as 5 years old and can last a lifetime. 1 in 5 Black women say they felt the pressure to straighten their hair. So Dove's campaign for the act, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, the Crown Act, highlighted the pressure on Black women. But we found Black men also feel pressure to straighten or cut their hair before a job interview. And longtime barbers like Michael Kassiam think it's wrong.
A left-handed person, you gotta be right-handed. You know, you're messing with somebody's inborn dignities. That's not right.
William McElwain battled racially charged comments about his hair as a former State Department employee.
I also had bosses make snide remarks about my hair. However, what I realized that there was an unspoken rule throughout the government is that Black men had to wear their hair a certain type of way. And that certain type of way was close on the top and clean shaven for the facial hair.
If passed, the Crown Act would ban racial hair discrimination at schools and in the workplace. It's on its way to becoming a national law.
I think the Crown Act is a good step forward into addressing issues of discrimination in the workplace. People shouldn't feel scared to wear their hair in its natural state.
The Crown Act has been passed by the House and is awaiting a vote by the Senate. President Biden said he'll sign it once it comes across his desk. Live in Harlem, Dana Mathura, CJS News.
Thank you, Dana. Students who have taken out loans can rest easy for a little while longer. President Biden, for the 7th time, has allowed federal student loan borrowers to freeze their payments until August 31st. This comes less than a month before collections were supposed to start, affecting tens of millions.
And coming up, Muslims get into the spirit of giving during the holy month of Ramadan.
This week marks the beginning of Ramadan, a Muslim holiday. It's a holy time, a time to fast, and a time to give back.
When the clock hit 7:33, the moment of sunset, Muslim members of the Brooklyn Islamic Center officially break their Ramadan fast with an iftar meal. Ramadan is a month when the Quran was revealed. It is a holy month observed by more than 2 billion Muslims around the world.
It is blessing month. It is our pleasure and a big chance to rectify ourselves.
Safu Alan, president of Brooklyn Islamic Center, welcomed his Muslim neighbors who haven't eaten from dawn to dusk. These 14,000 free iftar meals are distributed by the New York City Comptroller Office, Islamic Relief USA, and other community partners in Muslim neighborhoods around New York City. For Muslims around the world, giving to charity is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, along with fasting, declaration of faith, prayer, and pilgrimage to Mecca.
The fundamental idea in Islam is that everything we have, including our existence, comes from God. And the way we show gratitude for that which we are given is by sharing it with others.
Sharing it with all members of the community.
People have been here for hours picking up food, and they're not all observing Ramadan. In fact, that's the volunteers' point.
APNA, a community organization in Coney Island, has been operating the food pantry for years. It's one of the community partners making special donations during this Ramadan.
We are predominantly South Asians, specifically from Pakistan, the management of APNA. But here everybody, you see the diversity in the line. Everybody is welcome, everybody is coming here.
Ramadan, yes, is in fact a month of fasting for Muslims, but if we don't give towards the community, what's the whole point of us giving back to the community?
Donations for families in need will be taking place in all 5 boroughs throughout Ramadan.
So Tyler, how many Muslims are there living in the city?
So right now there's about 700,000 Muslims living right here in New York, and that's about 9% of the city's population.
And how does that number compare to the rest of the country?
So, a lot of people think that Michigan actually has the highest population of Muslims, but right now, New York has the highest population of Muslim Americans, about 22% of them.
Okay, thanks, Tyler.
No problem.
And in the latest feud between Mayor Eric Adams and Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, Adams announced the launch of an 8-week billboard and creative ads campaign to denounce the state's controversial Don't Say Gay law. The billboard invites Florida residents to come to New York where they can, quote, say whatever you want. Florida's law prevents educators from teaching curriculum about sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade. New York's billboard campaign will run in major cities in Florida such as Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, and Orlando.
This political showmanship of attempting to demonize a particular group or community is unacceptable. And we are going to loudly show our support and say to those who are living in Florida, listen, we want you here in New York.
And before we go, a story to put a smile on your face or your beak. This is Crescent, a 25-year-old great hornbill. Crescent had a type of skin cancer on her beak, and usually this would have been a death sentence. But thanks to a new 3D printed prosthetic, specialists from the University of South Florida and Tampa General Hospital were able to give her a second chance at life. Such an adorable bird.
Well, how'd you like to have that flying around near you?
Well, I'm Michael Hoffman.
And I'm Samantha Cheney, and that's it for today.
Thank you for joining us. Please tune in again soon.